ultimate Valby is here, and it's finally time to give her some juice, even though she provides a lot of it. What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new First Descendant video, and I'm finally covering Valby. I did say I will cover her when she gets her ultimate, and here we are. This Valby build was inspired by the homie Aznvasions, the OG Valby main, who also did a spreadsheet for how crazy she can scale weapons with her supply moisture skill module. And we even did a double Valby clear on Gluttony. Pretty chill run. We'll link his video in the description down below. Valby is not your usual unit. She isn't really a DPS, but somewhat of a crowd control unit. She's an area denial / control descendant. She deals sustained damage while also covering a whole area in her juices. Yes, that's exactly what I said. I did not stutter. All of her abilities apply a debuff called Laundry. It debuffs enemies to further increase damage done to them, as they end up taking more damage from electric and non-attribute damage. Essentially, Valby boosts Bunny's damage. Good synergy right there, but this electric debuff is not only limited to abilities, but elemental damage from weapons. Her passive gives you minus 30% skill cost reduction on your abilities if you're standing in the juices she created. However, for this Valby build, I will be using an augment that disables that passive, but offers her something even better, for her damage to scale even higher while also boosting the damage of her weapons. Supply Moisture. This skill module augments her passive. So now, while standing in her juices, instead of getting skill cost reduction, the juices grant all her abilities 10% more duration, 20% more crit rate on all your abilities, final critical multiplier on your guns, and increases their status chance by 2%. This is her best in slot augment, and after testing all of her other augments, they just do not compare to how powerful this augment can get. I even used the Valby Ball augment for Gluttony. It's a gimmick augment to just save you some ammo. It works, but it doesn't come close to supplying moisture. With moisture, you can take your crit rate on Valby all the way up to 70%, but I settled for 60% because it was better to multiply my damage with crit damage multipliers instead. And with this augment, you can take your crit rate on weapons to 60 all the way up to 100%. That's how insanely good this mod can be.
On most weapons, like scout rifles, assault rifles, and SMGs, it doubles your final crit chance. Yes, doubles. And your final crit, not mod crit. No, it's not just a visual bug, we tested this. So you see this 35% crit rate Thunder Cage? Yeah, so I used Supply Moisture and Stand on my water. It now has 70% crit rate while still debuffing enemies to take more damage from electric.
Valby has a very simple kit. All her abilities apply the Laundry debuff. Her first and fourth skill are both fusion, but we do not go for a fusion reactor, but mostly focusing with her second and third skill, which are Dimension. So with a reactor, you want a non-attribute Dimension reactor with a mounting condition of whatever weapon you want. But also make sure you mod your weapon with electricity, or if you don't want to do that, you can have bonus electric damage as a substat. But always know that modded elemental damage scales even better to further boost your outgoing gun damage. Her first skill, Bubble Bullet. I know. Throws out a jank bouncing water attack that deals some damage and leaves behind a pool of Valby's juices. It has horrible physics, so this is something you would only use in boss fights to supply yourself with moisture, or if you're using the augment to help you fondle Gluttony's balls. Otherwise, you won't see yourself using this ability too often. Her second skill, Plop Plop. Seriously, who came up with these names? This is a water-based version of Reaper's Teleport, where you animation lock yourself, targeting an area where you want to emerge from. So it's a nice way to teleport through lasers or reach higher places if your skill issued with grappling. It does some decent damage as it spawns a puddle on your current location and a new one with some AoE splash damage. The downside to this ability is that you cannot cast it while airborne, your animation locked, and vulnerable to any attack while it's activated. So as you're teleporting and emerging in a new area, you're open to any type of enemy attack. And if you're stunned or staggered, the ability will be cancelled and it goes on a cooldown. Her third skill, Cleanup. This is her popular skill, where I'm pretty sure you all have seen it by now. This is where she really opens up the floodgates and excretes fluids from her lower half, and covers the floor with all the juices wherever she goes. And all the viscous fluids she leaves behind deal damage over time. While in this form, she cannot jump or use her weapons, but she will have the ability to go through enemies' bodies, completely immune to body blocking. And finally, Laundry Bomb, the 4th skill. Like seriously, who came up with these names? Valby summons her unique weapon where she shoots out blobs of fluids that have radial sucking powers and trigger the Toad status effect. It's good for grouping up pesky enemies or spawn capping a group of enemies and even triggering a set bonus from a component set. The bullets do scale with magazine mods on your weapon, but unfortunately you won't get as much as 5 shots. Now that I've gone over her kit and how she works, let's take a look at how I've built her, shall we? So if you're playing a weapon platform build, you always want to make sure to have water around you. You're not necessarily going to engage the boss with a 2nd skill or, walk there with your 3rd ability. So usually you just want to throw your 1st skill, and that will of course trigger that laundry status effect, which will of course debuff them, having them take more damage from non-attribute and electricity. So this is some nice way to cover some distance. And you may have noticed with that down, I do get that increase in crit chance. So my abilities are critting, and that also increases the crit chance on my weapons. If you haven't noticed, I do have 57% crit rate on my Enduring Legacy, and multiplying that damage 7.8 times, which is huge. And if you're running the ability DPS version, you can either engage enemies with your 2nd skill or your 3rd skill. So boom, look at all that coverage of water. And then you follow up with your 3rd skill, and it's just going to deal all that damage and destroy everything in sight. If I were to respawn the enemies right there, it's just going to spawn camp every single enemy that comes into contact with Valby's juices. So quickly going over the component sets. As you already know what reactor we're using, I am running the Slayer set. This is from Hard Pyro. Unfortunately, Slayer does not have really good main stats, but we're here for that set bonus. First of all, it gives us general rounds capacity, which is very nice, especially for using something like the Enduring Legacy or the Thunder Cage, and rounds per magazine by 9%, increasing our magazine even more. With a fully reloaded magazine, I have 229 in the mag right there. That's insane. So I can just go raka-taka-taka-taka till the enemy's dead. But what else does the set bonus actually give you? It does make your skills cost 15% more mana, and I'm using Supply Moisture, which removes that mana cost reduction. So that's kind of yikes, but you don't even have to worry about that, because take a look at the other bit. You get 26.1% more skill power, so your abilities do even more damage. And then the final part, when defeating enemies inflicted with Toad, that's with your 4th skill by the way, you recover MP and specialized resources. And on top of that, I do have max MP on my sensor with MP recovery in combat. Now for the weapon build, you can always check out my Enzo guide. I do go over the weapon there in detail, same build, haven't changed it. The only thing that's changed is the bonus electric instead of firearm attack. Okay, so now let's take a look at that Valby build. Now she currently has no modules equipped, so you can see that she has a base crit rate of 5% and a base critical damage multiplier of 1.3. Going to the build section, these are all my socket types. I also do have one on my sub module. With an energy activator and putting a mod into the sub module that has been socketed will grant you 85 capacity. And of course, every single socket type will reduce how much capacity your mods will consume. Because this is the one and only Valby build you need, we're only going to use the best in slot augment, which is Supply Moisture. Now remember, I did have a 5% crit chance and a 1.3 crit damage multiplier, and I do have 3 A's. So we're going to start off with our crit mods. Skill Insight for the crit chance increase, skill concentration for the crit damage, and finally front lines to double down on the crit damage while also giving me some critical hit rates. So if we go to our stats, we can see that we have 12.1% crit chance increase with a 3.6 times crit damage multiplier. So if I were to activate my puddles of juices and take a look at my crit chance, it is all the way up at 60.7% crit chance. Now moving on, I do have 3 R's, a C, and 3 M's. Let's start off with that C. The C is going to be simple. This is going to give us our HP, but on top of that, grant us some duration. Unfortunately, I'm not using the increased HP, which I'll get even more HP, but this gives me some of that juicy added duration. Always nice to have some duration with Valby. Now, following up with the R's, I want to increase my range while also increasing my duration and a little bit of survivability. So I'm going to add skill extension for the duration, skill expansion for the range, and for some added survivability, I will run Spear and Shield. This gives me some defense and skill power. Taking a look at my survivability stats, I do have 17k defense and 5.6k health. I do get some extra defenses from my components and HP coming from the auxiliary and the processor. Remember, we're at 346, but I want to reduce my cooldowns so much. So in the M socket, I will be adding MP conversion. This gives me that juicy minus 36.5% skill cooldown, but gets rid of 15% of my mana. So we go down to 294, which is still enough for my abilities. And the final two M sockets over here are there to boost my abilities, which is going to be my second and third. Since she's non-attribute and these two over here are dimension, I will be going focus on non-attribute and focus on dimension. Both of these will increase my damage on my 2 and 3 while also reducing my cooldown. My fourth skill goes down to 13 seconds, my third skill down to 9 seconds from 22, and my second ability all the way down to 11.1 seconds. And that cooldown is even stacking up with my reactor, as I did show earlier. This is the ultimate Valby build, the only build that you would need. So yeah, that has been it for me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. And if you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and
subscriber
for more First Descendant content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Yeah, thanks for watching. As always, a peace. Bye-bye now.